Captain Wujin stood in the middle of the bridge and looked out at the dark space ahead. The stars that had once seemed peaceful now held a terrible sight. 300 alien warships moved toward Earth like a deadly cloud. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, and they came from 12 different alien races. The lead ship looked like it was made of purple crystal, and it was as long as 10 city blocks. Behind it came ships that looked like giant metal insects and others that glowed with strange green light. Some ships had no clear shape at all and seemed to change form as they moved through. Space Lieutenant So Min sat at her station with her hands moving quickly over the controls. Her face was tight with worry, and sweat ran down her forehead. She had been tracking the alien fleet for 3 days, and the numbers were not good for Earth, sir. The alien fleet has stopped moving. They are now in attack position just outside our defense range, So Min called out. To the captain, her voice was steady, but Wu Jin could hear the fear underneath. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the quiet beeping of monitors. 20 crew members worked at their stations, but everyone was listening. The moment they had all feared for 50 years had finally come. Then the communication system came alive with a sound like thunder. The alien voice spoke in their own language first, which sounded like music mixed with the roar of wind, then the translation. Computer changed it to human speech. People of the small blue planet, the voice said, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. We are the Galactic Council, and we speak for all civilized races in this part of the galaxy. Your species has been watched and studied for many years. Wujin felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. He had trained for this moment his whole life. Every human military officer had studied what might happen when the aliens finally came to Earth. You call yourselves humans, the alien voice continued, and your behavior has caused great concern among the peaceful races of the galaxy. You fight wars among yourselves, you destroy your own planet, you create weapons of terrible power. You cannot be trusted to exist without guidance. The captain looked around at his crew and saw the same anger in their eyes that he felt in his chest. The aliens had been watching Earth for decades, and they thought they knew everything about humans, but they had missed the most important thing about humanity. Therefore, the Galactic Council has decided that your species must be placed under our protection and guidance. The voice announced, you have 30 of your days to surrender all weapons and military forces. You will hand over control of your planet to our administrators. Your leaders will be replaced with our chosen representative. Esmin turned from her station and looked at the captain. Sir, they are demanding that we give up our independence completely. They want to control everything about human life for the next 1,000 years. They call it a probationary period, but it sounds like slavery to me. Behind the captain, tactical officer Jin Ho was already running battle programs on his computer. The young man had spent 5 years studying alien technology and ship designs. He knew exactly what the human fleet was facing. Captain, the enemy has energy shields that can stop most weapons. Jin Ho reported quietly. Their ships are armed with plasma cannons and particle beam weapons. They also have some kind of gravity manipulation technology that lets them move in ways our ships cannot. Wu Jin nodded, but he was not worried about the alien technology. The aliens had made a big mistake when they decided to threaten Earth. They had been watching human activities for years, but they had only seen what humans wanted them to see. The alien voice spoke again, and this time it sounded impatient. We know that your primitive vessels number only 200 ships. You cannot hope to fight against our combined might. We offer you this chance to surrender peacefully. If you refuse, we will be forced to take your planet by strength. The captain walked to the center of the bridge and pressed the communication button. His voice was calm and clear when he spoke. Sir, we appreciate your concern for our welfare. However, we must respectfully decline your generous offer. There was silence for a long moment. Then the alien voice returned, and it was filled with surprise and anger. You cannot be serious. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. Your weapons are like toys compared to our power. We give you one more chance to accept our protection message. Received and understood, Captain. Wu Jin replied, but our answer stays the same. We choose to remain free. The communication ended with a sharp click, and the bridge was quiet again. So Min looked worried as she checked her instruments. Captain, the odds are very bad for us. Their technology seems better than ours in every way. How can we possibly win against such a large force? Wu Jin smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. The expression on his face was not pleasant, but it was confident. Lieutenant, the key word you Used was seems they have been watching us for decades, but they never understood what they were really seeing. He turned to his tactical officer. Jin Ho, activate the hidden defense network. It's time to show our visitors what humans do when someone tries to take away our freedom. Jin Ho pressed a series of buttons on his control panel and lights began flashing all around the bridge. Sir, all hidden stations are responding. The orbital platforms are coming online. The asteroid belt weapons are ready to fire. The deep space monitors are tracking all enemy ships. The aliens thought they were fighting a small fleet of primitive human ships, but they were about to learn the truth. Humans had been preparing for this day for 50 years, and they had built something that no other species in the galaxy had ever imagined. Every piece of space debris in the solar system, every abandoned satellite, every chunk of rock floating between the planets was part of a massive weapons network. The aliens had walked into a trap that was 8 planets wide. Captain Wu Jin looked out at the alien fleet and his smile grew wider. The Galactic Council was about to learn that humans were not as primitive as they appeared. They were about to discover that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not advanced technology, it was human creativity and the will to fight for freedom. The battle for Earth was about to begin, but it would not be the kind of battle that the aliens expected. They came looking for an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they would face something that would change the galaxy forever. They would face humanity at war. Admiral Haijun sat in the command center, buried 3 miles under the Pacific Ocean. The room was huge and filled with hundreds of screens, showing every part of the solar system around her. 2,000 people worked at control stations that connected to weapons hidden throughout space. The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for decades, and they thought they knew everything about human military power. They had counted every ship, every weapon, every base that humans had built on the surface of planets. But they had missed the most important secret of all. Phase 1 is complete. Admiral Commander De Yun reported from her station. All orbital platforms are online and ready to fire. The alien fleet has moved into the perfect position. They are completely surrounded, and they do not even know. Ethi Jun looked at the main screen that showed the alien fleet. The 300 ships were arranged in attack formation just like their military books said they should be, but those same books had been written for fighting other alien races, not for fighting humans. The plan had taken 50 years to build while the aliens watched Earth's small surface fleet. Human engineers had been working in secret deep underground and in hidden bases. Throughout the solar system, they had built a defense network that stretched from the center of the sun to the edge of Pluto. Sir, the alien ships are beautiful, Commander Dayun said as she studied the enemy formation. Their technology is far beyond anything we could build in a normal way, but they are designed for fighting other council races. Their shields work against energy weapons and normal missiles. That was exactly what human planners had expected. The aliens had fought the same kinds of wars for thousands of years. They used energy beams and plasma weapons and exotic matter bombs. All of their defenses were built to stop those kinds of attacks, which is why we chose a different path, Admiral Haijun said with satisfaction. Human creativity has always been our greatest weapon. They expect us to fight like other alien races, but humans have never done anything the normal way. She pressed a button on her control panel and spoke to the entire solar system. Attention, all stations. This is Admiral Haijun. Begin kinetic bombardment sequence. Show our visitors what happens when you threaten human freedom. Throughout the solar system, thousands of hidden weapons came alive. What had looked like ordinary asteroids suddenly opened up to reveal powerful magnetic launchers. Abandoned satellites that had been floating in space for decades turned out to be disguised weapon platforms. Even pieces of space junk began moving with deadly purpose. The first attack came without any warning. Chunks of metal and rock that had been floating harmlessly in space suddenly accelerated to incredible speeds. The aliens had energy shields that could stop laser beams and plasma bolts, but they were completely helpless against simple pieces of metal moving at 1/10 the speed of light. Direct hits on 17 enemy ships, Commander Dayun announced with excitement. Their shields are completely useless against kinetic weapons. The metal chunks are going right through their defenses like they are not even there. The alien fleet began to panic. Their sensors could not find where the attacks were coming from. The weapons looked like natural space debris until the moment they started moving, then they became deadly missiles that could destroy even the largest alien warship. Chief Engineer Taeyang watched his instruments with amazement. Sir, the aliens are trying to retreat, but they are moving deeper into our trap zone. Every direction they turn, there are more hidden weapons waiting for them. The beauty of the human plan was its simplicity. The aliens had advanced technology that could manipulate space and time and energy. But humans had remembered that the most basic law of physics was that mass times velocity equals devastating impact. Second wave firing now, Taeyang announced. 100 more projectiles launched from the asteroid belt. The aliens are completely confused. They keep looking for our ships, but the weapons are coming from rocks and debris. Admiral Haijun watched the battle with cold satisfaction. The Galactic Council had made the same mistake that many enemies had made throughout human history. They had assumed that advanced technology was more important than clever thinking and careful planning. The alien fleet was trying to fight back, but their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat. They could not target thousands of small objects moving at different speeds from every direction. Their powerful plasma cannons were useless against enemies they could not see or predict. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. Commander Dayun said they are asking how this is possible. They want to know where our ships are hiding. Tell them that human ships are not hiding. Admiral Haijun replied with a cold smile. Tell them that they are fighting the entire solar system. Every rock, every piece of metal, every chunk of ice between here and Pluto is now a weapon aimed at their fleet. The alien commander tried to understand what was happening, but it was beyond their experience. No species in galactic history had ever turned an entire star system into a weapon. The very idea was so crazy that no one had ever thought to defend against it. Meanwhile, the attacks continued. Human engineers had spent decades calculating orbital mechanics and timing systems. Every piece of space debris had been carefully positioned and equipped with small thrusters that could change its course at exactly the right moment. The result was a three-dimensional maze of death that surrounded the alien fleet. No matter which way they turned, there were more projectiles coming at them from unexpected angles. Their advanced sensors were useless because the weapons looked like natural objects until they started moving. Third wave launching from Jupiter orbit, Taeyang reported. The aliens are trying to use their faster-than-light drives to escape, but we have weapons positioned along all the escape routes they cannot leave without running into more attacks. Admiral Haijun had studied alien psychology for 20 years. She knew that species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were not prepared for this kind of surprise. They expected to win battles through superior technology and overwhelming force, but humans had learned something different during their violent history on Earth. The best way to beat a stronger enemy was to change the rules of the game completely, make them fight in a way they had never experienced before. The aliens came to Earth expecting a normal space battle between fleets of ships. Instead, they found themselves fighting against the laws of physics themselves. Every piece of matter in the solar system had become a potential weapon. Commander Dayun looked up from her station with amazement. Sir, half their fleet is destroyed or badly damaged. The survivors are trying to surrender, but they do not know who to surrender to. Admiral Haijun smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in 3 days. Tell them they can surrender to the solar system itself, but first they need to understand that this is only the beginning. The hidden arsenal of humanity was just the first surprise. The aliens were about to learn that humans had been preparing for this moment in ways that would shock the entire galaxy. The age of galactic domination was ending, and the age of human independence was about to begin. Council Supreme Leader Veltarn stared at the holographic display in the great chamber on the capital world of Zentara Prime. His 4 eyes could not believe what they were seeing. Half of the most powerful fleet in galactic history was either destroyed or floating helplessly in space around a small blue planet. The species they had dismissed as primitive cave dwellers had just delivered the most devastating surprise attack in the history of galactic warfare, and they still could not figure out how the humans had done it. How is this possible? Veltarn asked the assembled council members. His voice shook with confusion and fear. Our intelligence report said that humans had only basic space technology. Where did these weapons come From War Chief Kent of the Draknari Empire slammed his massive fist on the council table. His scales turned dark red with anger. We sent our best ships and our most experienced commanders. The humans should have surrendered the moment they saw our fleet, but they did not surrender. Science Admiral Quinra of the Zentari Republic said quietly as she studied the battle data. Instead, they turned their entire solar system into a weapon, something no species has ever done before. The council chamber buzzed with worried conversations. Representatives from 200 different species were trying to understand what had happened. The humans had somehow made every piece of space debris into a guided missile. Military analyst Jex Vor projected the battle data onto the main screen. Look at these attack patterns. The projectiles came from thousands of different locations at precisely calculated times. This required planning that goes back decades. Maybe Centurius Voltarn felt sick in his stomach. The council had been watching Earth for 50 years. They had detailed reports on every human military installation, every ship, every weapon. But somehow they had missed a defense network that covered an entire star system. It appears we have been systematically deceived, he said slowly. The humans allowed us to see their surface activities while hiding their true capabilities. They fed us false information while building the most advanced defensive system in known space. The truth was worse than anyone wanted to admit. Humanity had not just hidden their weapons from the Council, they had actively fooled the most advanced intelligence network in the galaxy for decades. Defense Minister Clax9 displayed his analysis on the secondary screens. These kinetic weapons are brilliant in their simplicity. They require no exotic matter or advanced energy systems, just precise timing and positioning. The humans have turned basic physics into their greatest weapon. The council members studied the data with growing horror. The human weapons were not more advanced than council technology. They were actually much simpler. But that simplicity made them impossible to defend against. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and explosive missiles, War Chief Kent admitted reluctantly. But these metal chunks moving at light speed go right through our defenses like they are not even there. The implications were staggering. The Council had spent thousands of years developing more and more complex weapons and defenses, but the humans had gone in the opposite direction. They had made warfare simple and direct and unstoppable. We need to withdraw immediately, Veltarn announced. The remaining fleet must retreat and regroup. We clearly do not understand what we are facing. Withdraw, War Chief Kent roared in anger. We cannot show weakness before these primitives. It would destroy Council authority throughout the galaxy. But even as they argued, the reports kept coming. The human attacks had not stopped. The surviving Council ships were still under constant bombardment from weapons they could not see or track. Sir, we have another transmission from the human planet communications officer, Morden announced. The message is being broadcast to the entire galaxy. Put it on the main screen, Veltarn ordered. The image of a human female appeared above the council table. She was sitting in what looked like a government office, but the view behind her showed the space battle still raging outside. Honored members of the Galactic Council, President Yunyung said in a calm voice, we hope this demonstration has clarified our position regarding your demands for surrender. The council chamber fell silent. Every representative was staring at the human leader, who was speaking to them as if they were equals. We understand your concern about our species, she continued. You see us as aggressive and unpredictable. This assessment is correct. However, you made a critical error in assuming that aggression means weakness. Behind the human president, the viewport showed the damaged remains of the great Council fleet. What had been the most impressive display of military power in galactic history was now a collection of broken ships limping away from Earth. For the past century, humanity has been preparing for this moment, President Yunyung explained. We knew that contact with galactic civilization would eventually lead to demands for our submission. We chose to prepare accordingly. The display changed to show the true extent of human preparations. The entire solar system was revealed to be a massive fortress. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid had been turned into part of a defensive network. Your species excel at energy manipulation and exotic matter physics, Dr. Young Hee said as she appeared next to the president. But you have forgotten the power of simple kinetic energy combined with human creativity. War Chief Kent stood up from his seat, his massive form towering over the other council "Members, this is impossible," he shouted at the screen. "No primitive species could build such a system." The human president looked directly at him through the hologram. "Primitive," she repeated with what humans called a smile. "We prefer the term creative. We offer you a choice," President Yun continued. "You may acknowledge human independence and withdraw your remaining ships, or you may continue this conflict and discover the full extent of our defensive capabilities." The transmission ended and the council chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. Every representative was thinking the same thing. The balance of power in the galaxy had just changed forever. Communications Officer Mordin looked up from his station. "Sir, the surviving fleet commanders are requesting permission to retreat. They say they cannot continue fighting an enemy they cannot see or understand." Voltarn looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. A single species had just shattered everything they believed about military power and galactic authority. "Grant the retreat," he said quietly. "We need time to understand what we are really facing." But even as the Council fleet limped away from Earth, the damage was already done. Word of the human victory was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species were beginning to ask questions about Council authority. The age of unchallenged galactic rule was ending, and no one knew what would come next. President Yun stood on the command deck of the massive orbital station that had appeared above Earth. Overnight, the structure was 10 miles long and filled with the most advanced technology that humanity had ever built. But like everything else in the human defense network, it had been disguised as something harmless. The station had been hidden in plain sight for 20 years, appearing to be nothing more than a construction project for a space elevator. But when the alien fleet arrived, the false walls had fallen away to reveal a military command center that rivaled anything in the galaxy. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she said as quantum communication beams carried her words across the stars, "we hope our recent demonstration has made our position clear regarding your demands for subjugation." Behind her, the massive viewport showed the wreckage of the alien fleet. Broken ships drifted through space while the survivors tried to repair their damaged vessels. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been reduced to scrap metal in less than 6 hours. Fleet Admiral Kyung-soo stepped forward wearing the new uniform of the United Earth Space Command. The insignia on his chest showed a simple design, a blue planet surrounded by defensive rings that extended to the edge of the solar system. "For the past century, humanity has been preparing for this moment," he announced to the galaxy. "We knew that first contact with galactic civilization would eventually lead to demands for our surrender. We chose to prepare accordingly." The holographic display activated and showed the true extent of human military preparation. The solar system was revealed to be a fortress unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every planet had underground bases, every moon had weapons platforms, every asteroid had been turned into a guided missile. "We understand your assessment of our species as aggressive and unpredictable," President Yun continued. "This evaluation is entirely accurate. However, you made a fundamental error in assuming that aggression equals primitiveness." Dr. Young-hee joined them at the podium. Her scientific credentials known throughout the galaxy. "Even before the battle, your species have mastered energy manipulation, exotic matter physics, and faster than light travel," she said with respect. "But you have forgotten the most basic principle of warfare." The display showed simplified physics equations that any species could understand. Mass times velocity equals force. It was the most elementary law of physics, but humanity had turned it into the foundation of their entire military strategy. "You build weapons that manipulate space and time and energy," Dr. Young-hee explained, "but we built weapons that use the universe itself as ammunition. Every asteroid, every comet, every piece of debris became part of our defensive network." The implications were staggering. The aliens had been trying to fight using advanced technology while humans had weaponized the basic structure of their star system. It was like trying to fight gravity itself. Admiral Kyung-soo activated another display that showed the defensive network in detail. "We have 14,000 automated weapons platforms disguised as natural objects. Each one can accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed." The numbers were overwhelming. The alien fleet had brought 300 ships to conquer Earth, but humanity had built a system with enough firepower to destroy 30,000 ships, and they had done it using nothing more than rocks and metal and precise timing. Every human settlement is a fortress. President Yoon explained every spacecraft can become a guided missile every civilian facility has hidden weapons. The entire solar system is our military base. The message was clear. The Galactic Council had not just stumbled into a trap. They had walked into a military installation that was 8 planets wide and had been under construction for a century. Minister of Defense Jae-hun appeared on the screen, his face serious but not threatening. We spent 50 years studying your military tactics, your weapons, your weaknesses. While you watched our surface activities, we were building something you could never imagine. The alien leadership was undoubtedly analyzing every word, looking for signs of weakness or bluffing. But the wreckage of their fleet floating in space around Earth proved that human claims were not empty threats. We offer you a choice that has never been offered to the Galactic Council before, President Yoon said with calm authority. You may acknowledge human independence and establish peaceful relations with our species. The first option was simple. The Council could accept that humanity would remain free and independent. They could establish trade, relationships, and cultural exchange programs and treat Earth as an equal partner in galactic affairs, or you may continue this conflict and face the full extent of our defensive capabilities, she continued with the same calm voice. But understand that what you have seen today represents only a fraction of our preparation. The threat was subtle but clear. The battle had involved only the defensive weapons within Earth's immediate vicinity. The outer planets had weapon systems that had not been used yet, and beyond the solar system, human preparations extended even further. Ambassador Min-woo took his place at the podium, representing the new Department of Galactic Affairs. Humanity does not seek to conquer or dominate other species, he explained. We want only to remain free and to be treated as equals. This was the most shocking statement of all. The species that had just humiliated the galactic military was offering partnership. Instead of demanding submission, it was unprecedented in galactic history. However, he continued, we will not accept subjugation under any circumstances. We would rather fight the entire galaxy than surrender our independence and our right to determine our own future. The transmission showed images of human children playing in parks and schools, families enjoying peaceful lives, workers building cities and farms. It was a reminder that behind all the military preparation was a species that simply wanted to live free. We have proven that we can defend ourselves, President Yoon concluded. Now we offer you the chance to discover what we can build together. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, and quantum communication beams carried the message to every corner of the galaxy. Within hours, every species would know that humanity had not only defeated the Council fleet, but had offered them partnership instead of revenge. On Earth, the massive orbital station continued its quiet orbit around the planet. Below, military bases that had been hidden for decades were finally revealed, showing the true extent of human preparation. The gambit was complete. Humanity had demonstrated overwhelming military power and then offered peace. It was a combination that no galactic species had ever seen before. The question now was whether the Galactic Council would be wise enough to accept the offer or foolish enough to continue a war they could not win. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on the neutral world of Kepler 442b. Deep underground, in the most secure chamber ever built, representatives from over 200 species gathered to face the greatest crisis in galactic history. For the first time in 10,000 years, a primitive species had not only resisted Council authority but had actually defeated the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The implications were staggering, and every leader knew that the decisions made in this room would reshape the future of galactic civilization. Supreme Leader Veltarn stood before the assembled representatives, his 4 eyes showing the strain of the past few days. The attack on our expeditionary fleet represents more than a military defeat, he announced. It represents a fundamental challenge to the entire foundation of galactic order. Intelligence Director Morvex stepped forward with his report glowing on holographic displays throughout the chamber. Our entire intelligence network has been compromised, he said with obvious shame. The humans have been feeding us false information for decades. while secretly building one of the most formidable defensive systems in galactic history. The data was humiliating every major intelligence agency in the galaxy had been fooled by a single species that they had dismissed as primitives. The humans had allowed the Council to observe their surface activities while hiding a military network that spanned their entire star system military. Analyst JexVOR presented his tactical assessment. The human defensive system is unlike anything in our historical records. They have weaponized their entire solar system using basic physics principles that we had forgotten were dangerous. The analysis showed that human weapons were not more advanced than Council technology, they were actually much simpler, but that simplicity made them impossible to defend against and nearly impossible to detect. Elder Counselor Zith Era of the Ancient Builders spoke with the authority of someone who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. This represents a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics, she said gravely. If word spreads that a single species can successfully resist Council authority, it will inspire rebellions across the galaxy. The economic implications were equally troubling. Trade Minister Flux 9 presented his analysis with mechanical precision. The humans have demonstrated industrial capacity, technological innovation, and strategic thinking that exceed our estimates by several orders of magnitude. The numbers were shocking. Earth had built thousands of weapons, platforms, and millions of guided projectiles while maintaining the appearance of a struggling pre-space civilization. The level of organization and secrecy required was beyond what most Council species could achieve. War Chief Kent of the Draknari Empire still favored military action despite the disaster at Earth. We cannot allow this precedent to stand, he declared, his scales turning dark with anger. If we negotiate with these primitives, every species in the galaxy will believe they can defy Council authority, but his support was dwindling. Many species were beginning to question whether the human victory was really a bad thing. The Council had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for thousands of years. Perhaps it was time for a different approach, and if we continue fighting them, Supreme Leader Veltarn replied, we risk losing even more ships and potentially facing a human counterattack. Their message was clear. They are not just defending their home system. The thought of human ships appearing in Council space was terrifying. The species that had turned their own solar system into a weapon could probably do the same thing to any star system they chose to attack. Defense Minister Clax 9 presented new intelligence that made the situation even worse. Sir, we have detected human monitoring stations in 17 different star systems. They have been watching us for decades, just as we have been watching them. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council chamber. The humans had not been sitting passively on their planet waiting for contact. They had been actively studying galactic civilization and preparing for every possible scenario. Science Admiral Quinra of the Centauri Republic spoke quietly, but her words carried great weight. The human approach to warfare is fundamentally different from ours. We fight using advanced technology and exotic weapons. They fight using creativity and the basic laws of physics. Debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to escalate the conflict and bring the full might of the galactic military against Earth. Others argued for negotiation, pointing out that humanity had shown remarkable restraint in their victory. Diplomatic advisor Luxion made a suggestion that shocked everyone in the chamber. We need to consider the possibility that the humans might actually be valuable allies rather than subjects to be controlled. The idea of treating humans as equals rather than conquered subjects was revolutionary. The Council had never offered partnership to a species that had resisted their authority, but the human victory had changed everything. Meanwhile, disturbing reports were arriving from across the galaxy. The news of the human victory was spreading, and other species were beginning to ask pointed questions about Council authority. Colonial Governor Hexstar reported from the Outer Rim territories, Sir, we have received formal requests for greater autonomy from 14 different species. They are citing the human example and demanding the right to govern themselves. The human rebellion was having exactly the effect that the Council had feared. Other species were beginning to believe that resistance was possible. If the Council could not maintain control over a single primitive planet, how could they control an entire galaxy? Economic advisor Tiaronsal presented even more troubling news. Trade agreements are being questioned throughout the galaxy. Many species are asking why they need council approval for their own economic decisions. The foundations of galactic civilization were cracking. The council system depended on the belief that resistance was impossible, but humanity had proven that even the most powerful military force in the galaxy could be defeated. Supreme Leader Veltarn looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. A single species had just shattered everything they believed about power and authority. There was another consideration that no one wanted to discuss. The humans had offered partnership instead of demanding submission. It was an opportunity that might never come again. Elder Counselor Zithera spoke the words that everyone was thinking. If we continue this path, we risk losing everything. The old ways of ruling through fear and force are ending. Whether we like it or not, the vote was called, and the result was closer than anyone had expected. The council decided to send a delegation to Earth to negotiate with the humans. It was the first time in galactic history that the council had agreed to negotiate with a species that had resisted their authority. The age of absolute galactic rule was ending, and no one knew what would replace it. But perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. 6 months after the failed council intervention, Ambassador Minwu stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly in the Great Hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The old council chamber had been transformed into something completely different, where representatives sat as equals rather than rulers and subjects. The human proposal for galactic governance is simple, Minwu explained to the assembled delegates from 300 different species. Each species maintains complete sovereignty within their home systems. Interspecies disputes are resolved through mediation, not military force. The transformation had been remarkable. What had begun as an attempted conquest of Earth had evolved into a complete restructuring of galactic civilization. The old council system of rule by force had crumbled within months of the human victory. Trade and cultural exchange are encouraged but never mandated. Continued Minister of Galactic Affairs Sujin. Each species chooses its own level of participation in galactic affairs. No one is forced to accept outside authority. The changes were revolutionary. The species that the council had labeled as too aggressive had become the driving force behind the most peaceful galactic government in history. Human military innovation was being shared freely with any species that requested it. Admiral J. Wan reported on the new security arrangements. Human defense technologies are now available to all species that want them. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous for would-be conquerors, but much safer for peaceful civilizations. The irony was not lost on anyone. The weapons that had defeated the Council fleet were now being used to protect smaller species from exactly the kind of forced subjugation that Earth had resisted. Dr. Young He presented the scientific exchange programs that had developed human research into kinetic weapons and defensive systems as being shared with 47 different species. In return, we are learning about energy manipulation and faster than light travel. The cooperation was unprecedented. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on joint projects. The threat of human defensive systems had forced everyone to find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. President Yun took the podium for her closing address to the assembly. The old ways of ruling through fear and military force are ending, she announced. In their place, we offer something that has never existed before, a community of equals. The response from the assembly was overwhelming. Representatives from species that had been conquered and oppressed for thousands of years were finally free to govern themselves. The human victory had given them hope that independence was possible. We learned long ago that the best way to ensure peace is to be prepared for war, President Yun continued, but we also learned that the best way to win a war is to make it unnecessary. The human philosophy was simple but effective. Build defenses so strong that no one would dare attack you. Then use that strength to create conditions where attacks became unnecessary. As the assembly voted to ratify the new galactic charter, former council supreme leader Veltarn approached the human delegation. His 4 eyes showed a mixture of respect and regret. We underestimated your species completely, he admitted. We saw your military preparations, but we thought they indicated weakness and fear. We observed your aggressive nature, but we missed your ultimate wisdom. Ambassador Minwu smiled with genuine warmth. We understand why you made that mistake. Most species use military power to conquer others. We use it to protect our freedom and help others find. The conversation was interrupted by cheers from the assembly floor. The vote had passed by an overwhelming margin. The new Galactic Charter was now the law throughout known space. The Charter established principles that would have seemed impossible just months before each species had the right to govern itself without outside interference. Military force could only be used for self-defense. Trade and cultural exchange were voluntary, not mandatory. Captain Wu Jin, who had been promoted to admiral, watched the celebration from the observation deck of the human embassy ship. The same man who had faced down the alien fleet now commanded a force dedicated to protecting galactic peace. Sir, we are receiving requests for defensive assistance from 23 different species, reported his aide Lieutenant So Min, who had been promoted to commander. They want human help in building their own kinetic weapon systems. The requests were exactly what human planners had hoped for. Instead of building an empire through conquest, humanity was creating a network of independent but mutually supportive species. Fleet Admiral Kyung-soo joined them at the observation deck. The galaxy is changing faster than anyone expected, he said with satisfaction. 300 species have declared independence from the old council system in the past 6 months. The transformation was accelerating as word spread about the new Galactic Charter. Species that had been subjects for millennia were discovering that they could govern themselves. The human example had shown them that freedom was possible. Minister of Defense Jae-hun reviewed the security reports. The old council military is falling apart, he announced. Most of their fleet commanders are requesting transfers to the new Galactic Defense Force. A new military organization was based on human principles. Each species contributed to their own defense while cooperating with others when necessary. No single authority could dominate the galaxy again. Dr. Young Hee presented her latest research, the sharing of human defensive technology is progressing faster than expected, she reported. 47 species now have basic kinetic weapon systems. The galaxy is becoming unconquerable. The ultimate irony was complete. The species that had been feared for their aggression had created the most peaceful period in galactic history. By making conquest impossible, they had made cooperation necessary. President Yoon concluded her address with words that would be remembered for generations. We refused to accept subjugation, and in doing so, we discovered that the galaxy was ready for freedom. The consequences had been far greater than anyone had imagined. The human refusal to surrender had not just saved Earth, it had liberated hundreds of species and created a new form of galactic civilization. As the assembly session ended and representatives prepared to return to their homeworlds, the scope of the transformation was becoming clear. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of independent cooperation had begun. Ambassador Minwoo stood at the viewport watching ships from dozens of different species departing in peaceful formation. A year ago they would have been subjects reporting to their council masters. Now they were free beings returning to govern their own worlds. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had hoped for. The consequences of refusing diplomacy had been greater than anyone could have imagined. Freedom had won, and the universe was better for it.